going.
No, we were trying, it's like, we were sitting next to each other and we're bouncing. He was like,
Representative Carrico, what's his last name?
Good afternoon. Been a busy week, but a good week. Obviously, mayor report deadline was today, and so we're getting near the finish line, and that's always good news. Second reading deadline will be on Monday, third's on Tuesday. I've been really pleased with the communication between the chambers. A ton of bills that have gone straight to the governor, not needing to, that weren't amended. And I think probably a record number of bills that have been concurred upon or will be concurred upon because members have been working with other members to get to the right spot in their bills. So that's been very pleasing. I think a credit to our members really being focused on getting their work done. Obviously, today House Bill 1001 was heard and cleared the Senate Appropriations Committee. I always look forward to working with my friend Senator Mishler and Senator Bray as we work to next week, and obviously get the new revenue forecast next week and see what that brings to us. We know we're going to pass a fiscally responsible balanced budget when we close session, and look forward to those conversations. I know we'll have lots of them in the next couple of weeks. It's been great to watch House Bill 1004. Just signed that to go to the governor. We will have a chance next week to concur on House Bill 1008. So all of the House agenda bills are moving and moving. So many have been signed. We have a chance to work on 1002 next week too. So just very pleased with the House sessions going, but we know the next couple of weeks will be interesting. They always are, and we'll obviously be very focused on getting a really responsible balanced budget that makes the right budget, makes the right investments in Indiana to keep it going forward. So with that, happy to take questions.
One of the House Republican priorities was 1005, which of course didn't move as included in the budget, but it looks very different now with those proposals. Can you talk a little bit about those changes, and have you talked to your caucus at all about what those changes will look like?
Really haven't. Just got an update from the Senate last night, and we knew we were going to have conversations. I've had conversations with Senator Bray, Senator Mishler. They need to have their conversations with their caucus, and that's what the next 2 weeks will bring is for us to come together and get to the right place. Obviously, we feel very good about House Bill 1005 and how to pass this body, so we'll work with them to help them see the light. So.
The Senate added some language that says this session doesn't die until November. Can you talk about how much of the reason that was needed was in case you guys want to come back on COVID issues?
Much more related to the fact that we have a very unique circumstance this year in regards to redistricting. I don't think, and I've been asking people, there's ever been a time where they know that the legislative body has to come back. This allows us to move through some steps, have the committee hearing, have the bills. The committee can actually pass the bill. Hopefully, we can, while being thoughtful, allow some process changes to make sure that we're here a limited number of days, and obviously that saves taxpayers money. But it was so heavily focused on the fact we have such a unique year this year, now we have to come back.
But couldn't you just come back in for a special session? Like, wouldn't Holcomb obviously allow you guys to do that?
Absolutely, he would, and and he's been clear on that. There's a whole host of things, like I noted. We can pass down the bills, the committee can meet. There's a whole series of procedural things that Senator Bray and I talked with our staffs. We felt like this was the best, most appropriate way. The governor would have called us back for special session. That was never a problem, never a concern. But this allows us to continue the kind of the flow and allows us to make sure that we're being as efficient as possible as we come back.
And can you just clarify, are you guys going to receive in session for the end until November 21st?
We're correcting that, and there will be no additional cost to the taxpayers. honest with you, that was news to me this morning, so I have not had a chance to go into detail on those. I'll talk to Senator Bassler, Dr. Brown, and Representative Thompson. We'll talk to Senator Bassler, Senator Mishler, and get a better understanding on that. You know, I've always felt like, you know, the House Republicans, we have looked at ELL differently. ELL, you know, those kids are clearly have, you know, a huge challenge. They are in a unique challenge. So, you know, we absolutely will look at those conversations, look forward to those conversations. Again, I just need to better understand kind of the rationale and thought.
Obviously, another big change was the Senate doesn't include the cigarette tax increase. Is that something that you guys are willing to give up, or is that something you're going to push for?
They obviously their budget said that they were not interested in that. We've had conversations around that. I think the Senate has their caucus feels differently about that public policy, and so you know, they probably made a statement they want to make regarding that tax.
We have a couple questions from our Zoom participants. First, we have Abdul Hakim Shabazz with Indie Politics.
Mr. Speaker, on the cigarette tax, two questions. First of all, on the cigarette tax, one thing you said that the minister told us this morning was the fact that they wanted to save the cigarette tax for health-related reasons, particularly if the government sort of rebids on Medicaid funding. What are your thoughts on that? Number two, on the issue of sine die and not sine die until November, is that sort of a way of giving you guys sort of a backdoor in case you lose in court and the court says only the governor can call a special session?
Now, first of all, on the cigarette tax, I think, you know, I've made very clear that I think the biggest reason for doing the cigarette tax is a public health standpoint. We know that the cigarette tax is really the most impactful way to drive down smoking, particularly teen smoking. So that's the public policy reasoning, rationale for us. Obviously, there's no doubt that cigarette smokers cost the state a lot of money in Medicaid funding, but for me, it's always been about the public policy of trying to diminish cigarette smoking. In regards to, again, I'll just refer back to my comments earlier. You know, this is a very unique year, and we, you know, we felt like this. Senator Bray and I and our caucus felt like this was the best thing, knowing that we have to come back anyway. Is to leave this open, and it would take. I'm sure Senator Bray and I both would say extraordinary circumstances for us to come back prior to redistricting, and it is certainly our hope that we just come back for those days, and that is it.
Next, we have Eric Berman with WIBC.
Hi, Mr. Speaker. I have several, picking up that thread, I have several procedural questions about how this is going to work. When you adjourn at the end of this month, do you go into recess? Does that follow the gavel? Do you set a date certain to return? How exactly do you determine a date to come back?
We'll communicate follow the gavel. Eric, I mean, the challenge that we have is we don't know on redistricting data. That timeline continues to get kind of shifted around. So we'll communicate with certainly all 150 members of the body as we get more information about the need to come back. But, you know, this just, again, this allows us some flexibility. We don't have to come back in a special session, start by handing out a bill list and having a committee meeting, those types of things. We can get some of this work done in advance so we can be optimally efficient when we do come back.
And that actually goes to my second, what I promise will be just 3 questions on this. So you anticipate having committee hearings before the legislature actually reconvenes?
I would anticipate so. I mean, we will have the statewide meetings that we've had in other redistricting years, and then this would allow the the elections committee to have a meeting with specific bill numbers to consider.
And lastly, this came up in the debate of the Minority Committee report. You and Senator Bray have both said that you don't want congressional redistricting to get forced to the 5-member commission. Is that going to go in the budget, or if not, how else is that going to be dealt with before you leave?
That's actually, I believe, part of the language that was included in the Senate budget today. We wanted to make sure that language was in the Senate budget so that it passed both houses and people had a chance to review it.
Next, we have Brandon Smith with Indiana Public Broadcasting.
Afternoon, Mr. Speaker. The Senate Republican budget includes making the lifetime handgun license free as a sort of compromise instead of getting rid of handgun licenses entirely. Is that a compromise that you're comfortable with?
Well, our caucus passed permitless carry with very strong majority. That is obviously our preferred pathway. If I understand that have some challenges with the Senate, if we end up removing the lifetime permit fee, that's at least a positive step forward.
Next, we have Tom Davies with the Associated Press.
Hello. Just how far and how strong will your negotiators be pushing on the voucher expansion and the ESA in the budget? The Senate has lots of questions, of course, on doing both. Is there, do you think that there's appetite to make that a contentious issue in these final weeks?
Tom, we've been consistent. The House Republican Caucus has been consistent in our belief that parents should have the choice for their children, and we will be consistent in that message at the negotiating table with Senator Mishler, Senator Bray, and their team. So, there are things that each caucus is and feels passionate about, and is important to each caucus. Again, Senator, I always enjoy talking to my friend Senator Mishler, and Dr. Brown will lead those negotiations for us. But we'll be strong on the things that matter to our caucus, and we've been, House Bill 1005 has strong support from our caucus, and I would expect that we will be negotiating very aggressively around those provisions.
That concludes the questions from our Zoom participants.
Just one final, the Senate budget appropriated maybe $850 million of the federal dollars, but Senator Mishler said that you guys expect to include some more in the final budget. Do you have a goal for what you want to have appropriated versus what you want to hold back in case?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We're going to appropriate those dollars. Obviously, in House Bill 1123, it provides us with the opportunity to both appropriate it or also have a budget committee review. We're going to appropriate a large percentage of those dollars. I think one of the big things that we're thinking a lot about is making smart, short-term investments that really propel Indiana forward. Obviously, for us, I think we think the regional acceleration dollars are huge. I think they have the opportunity. We'll be fighting aggressively and hard to grow that number well beyond the $150 million that's in our budget. Obviously, the broadband dollars. And then, my understanding is the Senate paid down some debt with those federal dollars to open up, some leeway in our state budget. So we're going to appropriate those dollars. We're working hard on that. And I think a lot of the conversations over the next 2 weeks will be around those things.
A lot of people are hoping that the next revenue forecast will look better. Do you have any priorities if it does, what you would do with those dollars?
I think it's the balance of what I do. I really do believe that we have to be really smart about making short-term investments that are going to drive the type of economic recovery, and frankly, we're through the recovery. It's about how we grow and accelerate. And so we want to make those strong economic investments and then give ourselves some opportunities and flexibility in future years too. So, it's finding that right balance. You can do it by, putting money in the regional acceleration plans, and broadband are very smart, one-time, short-term investments, and then looking at, paying down debt and those types of things which free up appropriate dollars. I mean, the thing I always say from my Ways and Means experience is, every budget is tight. I mean, you'd like to think that there's when you see all those billions of dollars, that there's a lot more flexibility than there is. But being very smart and intentional about how you provide yourself flexibility in the future to make the investments that we're always going to want to make in education and infrastructure and programs that we know our Medicaid expense is going to continue to grow and grow and grow. So giving ourselves flexibility to deal with things that you never know what's going to come up. I always say this: the South Shore project, I think, is one of the most important economic development projects in our state. And you know, because we had the cash available in 2019, when the federal government changed the amount which they'd invest, we had the cash available to make that investment. And I just think having that flexibility is critical. We want to make the right short-term investments that give us the opportunity to have long-term flexibility as we deal with issues I'm sure will come in front of us.
Mr. Speaker, you have time for one more question. Right.
Thank you.
Thank you all.